Good afternoon, folks, and thanks for joining me for a webinar today. I'm just looking in the crowd here, and it looks like a lot of familiar faces and some new ones. That's great. So today is really just going to be a little bit about what we do and what we're about and what our software can do for you. And as you can see, the title is Making Money with a Custom Traded System. So as we're going along, I just want you guys to think. If you're not systems trading already, or if you're not sure what it is to trade a system, just sort of keep that in the back of your mind as we go along. Like, how does that impact your ability to succeed as a trader? Okay, so one of the things that we did when we first began building this software is we looked at a lot of professional traders, and of course, a lot of people are interested in knowing, what is it that makes professionals succeed, and what separates them from the amateurs. We found some pretty interesting things about things that they had in common. Namely, one, that they tend to research and test their data, not just in a random way, but they actually have a very deliberate way of doing things, as we'll talk about in a little bit more. They also do a tremendous amount of work before the market is open, and in fact, they do all their work pretty much when the markets are closed, and that's where they do all their study. And probably last, and this comes as no surprise, is they have a great ability to control their emotions. This is something that amateurs definitely have great difficulty with. So when we went about this, and this is how we saw the landscape. And a little bit of a kind of an aside here. This is a little what we call the evolution of retail trading. Things that we saw, levels of sophistication of what's out there. The vast majority of beginner traders, or what we call ad hoc traders, they try different techniques here and there, left and right. And how many of you guys have probably done about the same thing? Sort of jumping from one system, or maybe seeing something on a message board here or there, and trying it out and seeing if it works, but sort of spinning your wheels a lot, not really working towards one sort of goal in terms of reiterating and refining a particular system, but just trying all sorts of random things. One step up above that, we tend to find is when the retail traders get a little more sophisticated and been around the block a couple times, they start to realize that you actually have to have a set of rules and a set of criteria in order to be able to trade successfully, at least on a consistent basis. And that's by and large where a lot of the successful professional traders are, and they certainly didn't get there overnight. And I guess the one sort of step above, evolved from that, is sort of a very new concept, this idea of algorithmic trading, which doesn't, when we use the word algorithmic trading, we don't really imply, some sort of robot sitting there executing all your trades like a magic black box that just spits out money. What we talk about is basically computer-assisted trading, the idea that you use the best components of computers to backtest and verify your trade rules, just like a scientist would. So that sort of brings us to why system trading is important in the first place, and this is really the cornerstone of our entire philosophy, and why we think Bloodhound and why we built Bloodhound. The idea behind system trading is that it lends to the idea that you can become consistent with your trading results, mainly through research, very much like a scientist would. You have a hypothesis, you have some set of rules that you've decided that may or may not be a profitable system or a way of going about trading. And the only way to really verify if it will make you money in the end, in the long term, is really to just try it out. And of course, you don't do that with real money. You go back through history and see if it would have worked. If you've had these, this set of trade rules, and see if it would have profited in the end, and then you test it out going forward. System trading is also great that once you've got this methodology down, if you have, you're basically in the live market and lots of things are changing on you at once, you've got this set of rules that you could just simply follow and trade off of. And it can get overwhelming, especially for a beginner. If you've got a lot of things to look at once, or if you just don't have a clear idea of what you're really looking for. There's a lot of things that could distract you from your trade plan. But having a solid system that you have confidence in, because you know that its results, and you know what to expect from this type of system after studying it and backtesting it properly. You have it's a lot easier to pull the trigger for the next trade. So this is kind of what we conjured up, this idea that again, what we saw with professional traders is not just that they were just going out and studying charts and they are studying charts, but they're doing a little bit more than that. What they're actually doing is, like I said, like a scientist, they're trying out their ideas. They're modeling their ideas. Usually, if they don't have some sort of computer assisted software like Bloodhound, a lot of stuff is done manually, or maybe they have the ability to code it. But basically, you take your system or your trade rules that you've got, and then you've got to plug it into something that you can use to calculate how well did it do in the past. And some people do this manually, so they'll take out an Excel spreadsheet or something like that, and they'll go back and look at all the signals that they would have had going backwards, and then manually calculate, had they have taken the trade here, here, and here, which ones would have profited, which ones wouldn't have. And then they go back and they test it and see, they find out how much profit the system would have made. And through this sort of analysis, only can they now figure out if this is a good system or not, or if they have to go back and make changes. And basically, this is not like one-off thing. It takes many sort of kicks of the cat, just like a scientist would take, if they're trying to discover some sort of cure for something, or whatever. It takes quite a few tries at it before you arrive at something that's successful, and we also think as well what may be successful for person A may or may not be successful for you, because trade systems are very personal matters. Even though if you have the same sort of trade rules and that someone else may have, if you can't sit through the drawdowns and you can't execute the same way that person intended to, there's a chance you'll be trading the system differently and therefore have different results. So, we really kind of build a tool that attempts to allow you as a person to create your own way, which we have found that pretty much all professionals, they create their own system in the end. Sometimes it's based off some other people's ideas, but in general, there's a lot of personality in their trade system. So the big question is that and this is a thing that a lot of retail traders, a lot of amateurs simply do not know the answer to, is whether or not their trade system that they've got actually works. And and it's not because retail traders are lazy or anything like that. In fact, it's just the opposite. Traders tend to be a very savvy bunch, hardworking bunch. But the problem is, without the ability to model your system in some sort of efficient manner, it's very difficult, very time consuming to figure out if your system actually is profitable. And that's where really computers are good for. And this is why, this is when I'm talking about algorithmic trading. I'm not talking about you may have images in the media about these high frequency trading robots that do magical trades. I'm not really talking about that. What I'm talking about is the use of computers to basically speed up what you should be doing as a retail trader already, which is basically taking your trade system, describing it to the computer, and using the computer's very quick ability to calculate things to backtest it to see if it works properly, or to see if it works, see if it profits the way you would expect it to. So, obviously there's some massive advantages to being able to model your trade system on the computer. Of course, the only problem about that is there really isn't a very efficient solution to do that. If you imagine, unless you're actually a coder or you're willing to learn how to script your trade system, or hire someone, a coder, to model your trade rules on the computer, There really isn't any other way to do this, and that's kind of where we come in. So what we offer is a software that allows you to describe your algorithm, your trade system, your rules using your indicators, your chart types, and basically model your trade system on the computer so that it can be back tested, it can be auto traded, and all without coding. So it's faster than actually if you happen to be a coder and you're able to build and write your own systems from scratch using Ninja Script or some other scripting language. Using our software, as you're going to see in a moment, is a far faster and much more flexible, not flexible, but extremely much more efficient way to go about things. So to bring about this, what I want to illustrate, I think the best way to go about this is to actually show you a system built from scratch, and fortunately I've got one ready to go, and it's actually one that my business partner Zach has put together for some of his examples, and he likes to call it the classic stock signal, because this particular system actually trades with very basic indicators, if you will. Like, these are indicators that just about every trader should be familiar with. Here's a little sample of what that actually looks like on the chart there. Those are the actual buy and sell signals that the system will spit out. And I'm going to show you how we can build it in a couple of minutes using Bloodhound. Okay, so here are some of the rules of this particular system, or no, characteristics, I should say. It's basically a trend finding system. It doesn't trade very often, but when it does, it works for those instruments that are kind of very large, have large sweeping movements, and not that any system. A system doesn't have to necessarily be traded the way a designer has designed it to be. Of course, you can find your own way, and that's kind of the whole point of our software. But this system was sort of designed with the daily scale in mind. It's a very, I think a lot of traders may actually learn something very similar to this system when they first start learning trading in general. This is there's nothing magical about the system, really. So as you can see, it uses very common indicators, the stochastic, the MACD, and moving average. Okay. Consequently, just an aside, but there's a lot of third-party systems out there that we find that really are just an amalgamation of very simple indicators. Stuff again that are actually very simple to put together with Bloodhound. So here's one of the components. Okay, so we have a bit of a trigger defined here. And we're going to call this one basically a SMA 30 cross. And basically the idea is if your price, which is right here, for example, crosses above this SMA 30, which is this white line, that's considered a long signal, maybe a start of an upward trend. And conversely, when we go cross below this 30 SMA, we're going to call that basically a short signal, or something that goes it's sort of signaling the beginning of a downward trend. So that's criteria number one. Okay, criteria number two, we're going to call this basically an analyzing a stochastics indicator, which is an oscillator that goes up and down between sort of a range of 0 to 100. And when the stochastics was built, it had a couple ideas to it. So one of the ideas is that you get these what they call overbought and oversold conditions. Okay, so oversold condition is kind of the idea, like your bears have been kind of hammering at the instrument for a little while. They've been selling off, and then they get exhausted. And the stochastic is basically trying to detect this condition. And so when it hits a certain point, like a certain threshold, like this line here, and of course this threshold you can sort of play with, but the idea is kind of the same. Usually typically this threshold line could be 20. So again, remember the range goes from 0 to 100. So sometimes it's 20, sometimes it's 25, and up here this line can be 70 or 75. Essentially the idea is, when you're about 1/4 maybe to 3/4, that's kind of the general area where you want to look at it. But the whole point is, when you get in this oversold condition and you have this exhaustion from your bears, and then the bulls come back in and start buying again, because naturally when the prices of the stock or instrument or futures, commodities, it doesn't matter, it's been sold for a while, there's a chance that when the bears come in, they're going to come in hard again and start buying because they see a good discount to the price. So that's what this stochastic is trying to oscillate and trying to catch. So when we get this cross back above this threshold, this lower threshold, we're going to call that basically a return from the oversold condition back into normalcy, or whatever you want to call it, and we're going to say that's kind of a long condition. The exact same opposite on the south side here, on the bearish side, we get this overbought condition here. And then you can sort of imagine now it's sort of time to take some profits. The bulls have had their good run, and now they're going to take some profits. And this is kind of this typically will signify the bears are starting to take over again. Okay. The last component that we're going to incorporate in this very simple system here is the MACD. A lot of traders actually use this. The MACD histogram is basically the difference between two moving averages, and the point is, when the histogram is pointing up or above the zero line, some people like to consider that as a momentum shift going up, and when we sort of see a break down below the zero line here, that's a signal that we're going, momentum is now carrying in the opposite direction. Okay, so we got our three components, and I'm going to bring up Bloodhound and show you how we can build this. All right, so before I do, I just want to challenge you guys for a little bit. Okay, so this is a chart up here. I've got here the stochastic, and then I've got the MACD, and you just need to pay attention to the histogram, because remember, the histogram was the only component here. I want you guys to look at this chart real quickly and tell me, how many signals do you see based off those three criteria? Okay, so again, the first one was that we cross above this, the price crosses above the SMA or below it. The second one was the stochastic going into overbought and oversold territory. And the third one was the MACD crossing above or below the zero line. I'm going to throw in one more piece of information. Okay, now, and that is, before you make your guess, is that it's very rare that you're going to actually have all three conditions occur on the actual bar. Okay, so let's say the rule is that as long as those three occur within 3 bars of each other, then we'll consider that a signal. Okay, so I'll get you guys to sort of ponder that for a second. And I guess the one thing, the one thing I really want to get across is, as you're sort of doing this and working this out manually, is that it's not really easy. You got to look back and you got to compare all three of the indicators and make a guess. There's a lot of things going on, and you can sort of imagine, say you're trading live with, a short time frame and whatnot, and the bars are coming in. It's very difficult to actually figure out what these signals are, going, on the fly. Okay, so, all right, so I'm gonna pull up the answers here. Okay, so I've got it pre-built, but basically those are the answers. Okay, so those are your signals, this is precisely why we like to use computers to indicate these things. Even if you got your system and you understand your rules, it's actually very difficult on the fly to identify them out. It's just not a thing that humans are proficient at. That's why we built computers. Okay, so let's start from scratch, and let's build this guy from scratch. Okay, so I've got my chart here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add Bloodhound to it. Right? Okay, so this is an empty template. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to model the crossover between this SMA 30, which is this white line here, and price. to do that, I just simply add what's basically an indicator crossover, and I tell it I want to compare the price against the SMA 30. Now notice how as soon as I do that, like Bloodhound updates the chart immediately. So this sort of instant feedback is great for you're trying out your system, you're tweaking it, you're trying different things out. You can see instantly any changes that you made and how does it affect the appearance of the chart. So as you can see, it does get pretty ugly in there when you're getting these cross ups, cross down, cross ups, cross down. You get this sort of chop. So obviously that's going to be terrible if you're trading off just this one particular signal, and you'll be losing a lot of money every time you see the swing up and swing down. Okay, but you can see clearly, this is the swing, this is the crossover up, it's marked at green, crossover down, it's marked at red. Okay, and let's name this. This is the SMA 30 cross. All right. I'm going to skip ahead to the MACD one because that's a little bit easier. Then I'll go to stochastic in a bit. But basically, I want to look at the MACD now. And the MACD has got the histogram here. And again, we want another crossover. Okay, but this time we're going to be looking at the MACD versus the zero line. So as you notice, on my left-hand side, basically I've got all these indicators installed on my computer. These are indicators. Some of them I've downloaded off the internet. Some of them are, most of them are actually indicators that came with NinjaTrader. Bloodhound will actually work with any indicator as long as it actually plots a value, and as long as, or if it doesn't plot a value, as long as it actually outputs some sort of data series of some sort, it'll pick it up. Okay, so the MACD is what I'm interested in, and my partner likes to use sort of a modified MACD, so I'm just going to illustrate that you can, you don't have to go with any of the defaults if you don't want to. Typically a lot of traders do like to use their own parameters. And this is part of the fun. So you can go in and you can try different things. You can see how, faster moving averages work. You can see how changing up the parameters will affect your system. And as you can see, the MACD also, like I said, it's actually two moving averages. And we got a histogram. So we actually got three plots on there. And you can see clearly right here, we got one line, two lines, and we got this histogram. And what we're interested in is looking at the histogram. So I can just select the histogram from the MACD, hit OK. All right, and we want to compare this against the zero line. All right, so I just choose an absolute value and use that absolute value to 0. As you see instantly. Now let me just uncheck the SMA 30 cross, because we're just interested in the MACD now. Okay. And you can see anytime the MACD crosses below 0, you get this red. Anytime it crosses above 0, you get this green. Okay, so that's two components down, and let's do the third one. Okay, I'm gonna name that sucker. Okay, the last one. Now I can just uncheck that really quick and clear the chart. So just get a nice clean chart. The last one is pretty much the same idea. We're gonna look at the stochastic. Okay, and we're going to look at the stochastic in two parts. Remember, there was actually kind of two separate things we're looking at: the overbought and the oversold condition. And what we're interested in is this cross above this threshold, which is the 70 line. Not above, sorry, below. Okay, we want to look at this one below, and then we want to look at a different cross here. We want to look at going above the 20 line. Okay, so how do we do this? Well, simple. We just take our stochastic. All right, and we are interested in the stochastic D, and I'm just going to drag this over and match our parameters from the ones that we're actually using on the chart here. So Zach, my partner, he actually likes to use a slightly faster stochastic. That's just, again, his style. And we want to compare this against another absolute value, the 70 line. Okay. And as you can see, every time we cross above the 70 line, we get this green. Every time we cross below this 70 line, we get this red. Okay. Now, we actually don't care about these ones, though. We don't care about these guys crossing above the 70 line. Okay, that's going into overbought territory. That's not a long signal, at least from our definition of our trade system that we had defined earlier. Okay, it may or may not work, but at least the way that we've set out our rules, I'm going to model it faithfully. And again, we don't care about these crossovers up here. What we're looking for is this crossover down from overbought territory back in like when the bears are taking over again. Okay, so what I can do is I can just sort of restrict this one to calculate just the short values only, like so. Okay, there. So all the long values just disappear like that. This is the stochastic short signal. Okay. And similarly, we're going to do the exact same thing on the long side. All right, so again, I go back to my stochastics. Take my D, but let's just let's get the right parameters again. I plug in 5, 14, and 1. Okay. And guys, if you have questions, I'll get to them in a bit. I'm just sort of wait till I get to a bit of a break here. Okay, so again, we want the absolute value, and this time we want to go compare on the 20 line, and I'm just going to isolate that by itself like this. All right, there you go. Stochastic long, and as you can see, again, we have the same situation here. We got some of these signals here crossing below the 20. We don't care about those again. We only want to see the instances where we're crossing above. All right. Oh, I must have made a mistake here because this doesn't look like it matches here. So let me just take a look here. 29. Sorry, this is actually the 30 line. I got the wrong number there. There we go. The 30. There we go. That's a little better. Okay. So again, we're crossing above the 30, below the 30, above the 30, and we don't care about the short values in this case, right? We want to look at these instances where we're going above. So I'm going to restrict it to the long signals only, like so. Okay. And there. Now we have basically all three of our criteria put together. Okay. But there's a slight little hitch here, right? So if I enable these two here, short and long, we actually never get the short and long bars, the short crosses and long crosses to ever line up. You know, it's physically impossible when you think about it. There's no such thing. It's not possible for the stochastic to be crossing above the 30 line and be crossing below, the 30 line, while the and there's no long signal coming from the sort of the other side, right? So remember, when we take these two criteria, we've actually sort of separated them out, the two separate criteria. And you tell in Bloodhound, okay, I want to know all the bars where they match up, and there's no long signals coming from the other one. So what we have to do is actually use basically the logic screen, and this is where you can get really creative and really fancy with Bloodhound. So this particular screen, again, you just list out some criteria here. This screen allows you to actually put together some logic and put together more advanced constructs than just simply listing out your criteria A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? Okay, so let me illustrate exactly what I mean. What I need to do is I need to tell Bloodhound that, on any given bar, I want to know when a signal comes through from either or. All right, so they don't have to match up. I want the stochastic short or the stochastic long to fire off, and I just plug that as those two together, as you can see, into an OR node. And now we've got essentially what we're expecting. We've got the long signals happening, when we're crossing above the 30, and we've got the short signals happening when we're crossing below the 70. Okay. So the two combined using an OR node gives us this nice sort of clean signal mimicking pretty much the stochastic and what we're looking for, right? And now all we got to do, if we want to incorporate all the other ones together, is put them together with an AND node. All right. Okay, so I just pop in an add node like that, kill this result here, and connect this, all three criteria. Okay, so the last one's sort of like a compound criteria, and you can chain them out, you can chain them however you'd like. And then finally, when you're done, pipe it into the AND node, and that's a result. Now, it's not exactly what we wanted, because remember I said within 3 bars of each other, but hey, it found the one particular example on this chart where all 3 of them happen to occur on the same bar, okay? Right, so on this particular bar, the exact bar, it crossed down, this crossed down, and the 0 line crossed down. That's obviously a very rare occurrence, but I did say what we are going to do is look at those situations where they're at least within 3 bars of each other, okay? And this is quite simple to do with Bloodhound. So all these little tricks and stuff like that, if you're a programmer, you can really appreciate. Like we're using a lot of, especially now that if we're going to do something like this, this would add layers and layers of logic to your code, which certainly take additional time and whatnot to implement. Okay, so what we want to do is actually thicken these lines, right? So we want these to occur with, we want the possibility of them matching up within 3 bars of each other. And so all I gotta do is I just got to change the look back period, which basically tells Bloodhound, hey, look, if there's a crossover within the last 3 bars, maintain your signal for 3 bars. Okay. So as you can see, when this crossover occurred in the MACD up here, I'm going to carry forward that signal for 3 bars and so on and so forth, 3 bars down here. I'm going to do the same thing for the cross. Okay, so I can take this cross criteria, plug it right into the result. Do the same thing here. Thicken those lines up like that. All right. And finally, do the same thing with the stochastics as well. Okay, so I'm going to make these look backs all 3. Okay. And then when I finally plug in the final result, we get a couple of them that actually match up for all 3 bars. Some of them will match up for 2. Some will only match up for 1. But you can see now we have our signal as we had defined it earlier. Okay. And if you want to get super fancy, I'm not going to get into it, but you can actually clean these up and get rid of these duplicates if you're concerned about 2 longs in a row or 2 shorts in a row. There's various ways to just clean it up using even just a single node, but I'm not going to do that. We just want to keep it sort of simple here. But there you go. There you have it. So I've just modeled the system. I'm just looking at the clock here. So it took me probably about 15 minutes maybe, and I was going pretty slow, I suppose. Once you learn Bloodhound, you can actually be pumping out these systems and tweaking and changing things very quickly. Much faster than any programmer could possibly do it. Okay, so the next thing I want to show you is a little bit of auto trading. This is, I guess, the fun part of the demo here. So I'm not going to save this one because I don't really need it. But basically, I got some simulated data running. Okay, so we're going to put together a super simple system, just so we can illustrate. I want to show you how Bloodhound can actually do some auto trading. So you can go from basically 0, like no system, to a full-blown auto traded system, within 5 minutes. Okay, here we go. All right, so basically, if you're familiar with NinjaTrader, if you want to do sort of any strategy that actually runs back tests, whatever, it's basically a strategy, not an indicator. So before we added Bloodhound to the indicators, I'm going to be using a strategy component, or a strategy side of Bloodhound, which comes with Bloodhound for free. It's called Raven. I add Raven, and I'm going to make a very simple, very quick system. Basically, I've got the 2 moving averages up here, and I stick with crossovers just in my demos, just because they're very simple to understand. As you can see here, there's a lot of different criteria you can look at. Everything from slope analysis, comparing 2 indicators together, looking at bar directions and bar analysis, regression channels, support and resistance, swing trends, and swing, price swing action, essentially. So there's a fair bit of, there's a lot of things you can look at, and each one, of course, can also use any kind of indicator that's on your system. Some of them are, it's not relevant the ones that are relevant, I should say, the relevant ones that actually do use indicators. You can use any indicator or bar type on your system. Okay, so I've got here a 2 moving average, and we're just going to do a cross with this and the 10. Okay, so a 210 cross, really simple, easiest signal you ever see. And again, I'm just going to, this time I'm going to save it. All right, and I actually have one already built, but let's just save over it. Okay. Okay, and you can actually at this point now configure an ATM to execute. So how many of you guys are actually familiar with the NinjaTrader ATM? Okay, so those of you that that aren't familiar with the ATM, it's basically NinjaTrader's. It's called the automated trade management, and essentially, you know, I mean, if you want, you can just, you know, set your stops and targets and be done with it. You know, based off maybe some ticks. But say you want a little more finesse in that. You know, managing the trade is obviously a very important part of success that we found from professional traders, and the ATM is a great vehicle for that. So I'm going to show you kind of, you know, something a little more fancy than just throwing on some stops and a stop and a profit target. So I've got an ATM already defined, and this one actually does multiple positions. So this one actually will throw on a tight stop, relatively tight stop, with 3 contracts, and then a wider one, kind of a runner contract, if you will, with a wider stop. Okay. All right, so I'm going to check my settings here. I'm going to enable this sucker. And just let her load up. And like I said, this is not a system at all. And by the way, guys, I'm just using simulated data because I just want to illustrate you know, how this all works. But you can see on the right hand side, we do have some interactive elements. Everything is ready to go. So I'm going to force the cross to occur. So we got this purple line here, which is the shorter moving average, and the orange line, which is the longer moving, or the slower moving average.
Order filled. There
you go. So NinjaTrader or Raven has just auto entered. And you can see on the left hand of my screen, the ATM is now fired. And you can see this one's, you know, so I've got a couple things up here. I've got basically a tight stop with 3 contracts. I think I set them at 10 ticks apart from the entry price. And then I've got this runner contract. And the really neat thing about this is now, so again, Bloodhound / Raven just took the entry automatically. I'm using my system that I just defined. You know, it took a couple seconds to put together with a simple crossover, and I can step in here and I can now manage this trade. Okay, so now I can actually not interfere, but you know, I can massage the trade and discretionarily manage it using Raven to take the entry automatically using my system rules. Okay, so we'll just let that one play out, and in the meantime, let me just take a quick peek at the questions here. And let's see if I can get a little bit caught up here. Okay, so, all right. Okay, so Rick R, can the system generate arrow signals in additions to color? Rick, excellent question. We are actually working on that. At the moment, it just generates this color here, but certainly that's a feature that a couple customers have asked for. So. We are going to be including something like that in a future update. TJ, can you use any of the generic Ninja indicators when you're building your system, third-party indicators as well? Yeah, so absolutely, TJ. You know, I just the examples I've used some very rudimentary, you know, indicators that come with NinjaTrader. I used the MACD, the stochastic. You know, but we've got guys. In fact, some of you guys in here I do recognize from NextGen. NextGen customers, and John Novak from NextGen, you know, he's got his own proprietary indicator, and he's built a system, a very, very successful, very great system actually, using his proprietary indicator. You know, most certainly you could download indicators off the internet, and you can use those as well. And Kenneth, asking about the Fibonacci levels in Bloodhound. So that's the same idea. You can absolutely you take your favorite Fibonacci indicator and however you've got your levels defined in that Fibonacci indicator, you can use as sort of an input, if you will, to your system in Bloodhound. And we do have a support and resistance solver here. We call these things solvers. They're just basically little criteria. We have a support and resistance solver, which basically examines price levels and allows you to sort of get you signals based off of whether you're nearing a point where resistance level, or you're bouncing off a support level or something to that effect. So I mean, we have that capability, right? So in terms of actually Fibonacci's themselves, though, we don't have a method of generating Fibonacci's, but if you've got your favorite Fibonacci indicator already, you just simply plug it in and you can use that logic. You can use that to create logic within Bloodhound. Okay. TJ says, I love that name. All right, I guess that's Raven you're probably talking about.
Target filled.
Crossing above the 30, Toby says. So I think Toby, I might have probably we're probably past that. Okay, so just by the way, while I was talking there, you can see that Bloodhound had just, Raven had just reversed the position, and now I am short 4 contracts. So again, you can just sort of let it run and let it do its thing if you want. Another neat feature here, guys, is for example, if there's something in the market that's happening that you just don't recognize, you weren't accounting for, or maybe you're just done for the day, or maybe there's a certain news report coming out and you don't want to be trading during the news report, you can just simply hit this button, which basically disables entries. Your current trades will still play out, but you can actually override this essentially automated trader and tell it not to take new entries. And that way you can ride out maybe a storm, or maybe wait for a news announcement to finish. And you can also go here and close out your position like so. All right. So there are some little bit of manual control. But as you can see, there's a long signal that just came in, but it didn't take it because I had the entry disabled. Okay. Alfred asks, what is the effective we set calculate on bar close false? Excellent question, Alfred. So basically the effect of that is your signals your entries will occur intra-bar. Okay, so my bars are 5 seconds apart, so it's hard to see it, but you can most certainly just, all you got to do if you want to do what you're suggesting there is go to your calculate on bar close setting, which is right here, and just set that to false. And what will happen is you'll actually get signals occurring intra-bar. Okay, so that may or may not be desirable, especially if maybe you get a lot of signals occurring while the bar is still open. But basically, yeah, you can absolutely have your signals occur before the bar closes, just simply by changing that. And you can also control things like with Bloodhound, you have the ability to have some elements that are calculated on bar close, some things on calculate on bar intra-bar, and actually mix and match them. So you can actually do that. Sort of an advanced technique, or advanced thing, but you can certainly do something like that. Okay. John asks, I want to use NextGen outside of John's Novak's criteria. Can I build different from what John's doing? Absolutely, John. So you absolutely can build literally anything you want. You can use, as a NextGen customer, you can most certainly actually use his Revolution and T3 Pro Trader indicator. T3 Pro Trader is currently not supported, but they're releasing something next week that will have the support for it. But basically, yeah, absolutely, you can build to your heart's content your own rules, whatever you'd like, even not using his indicators or whatever you want. So Bloodhound is basically an open book, right? We don't force you to trade in any particular way. We don't force you to build a system in any particular way. It literally takes your rules, your indicators, your criteria, and allows you to model it however you see fit, using whatever indicators you want, be it some third-party indicator or just some system indicator on the system. Okay. Rick R, can we define support and resistance by color? Well, I mean, you can. I'm not quite sure, maybe the question specifically, but color is a little tricky because if you got a support and resistance, say, indicator, color is really not a piece of information that Bloodhound can read, or rather any strategy can read for that matter. But you can certainly read the price levels. So I suppose I'm not. I guess I can. I'm not quite sure if what you're asking there, Rick. TJ, you don't have access to the code when the indicators are proprietary. In some TJ, so yeah, when I say proprietary indicators, I'm talking about like some indicators you download off websites may have the code with it. Some of them don't. So certainly the ones that do, you can peer into them and see what they're doing. But some of them just come in what they call DLL files, and you can't see what's inside them. Either it doesn't really matter for Bloodhound's sake. You'll use both or either kind. GE asks, does this work with TradeStation? Not currently. So this is a NinjaTrader only add-on. Something we may be considering in the future. Just not in the immediate future, not for a little while at least. Just the NinjaTrader was sort of a natural choice because it's got, at least for the development side of it, things, a very extensible language, lots of capability for the when extending it, more so than TradeStation. Adam says, can we use much longer than 3 bars look back periods? Sure, Adam, there's no restriction. You can use 100 bars look back if you want. I'm not sure if that'd be useful, but you can certainly use whatever number you want. Maybe if you want within 5 bars of each other, you just type in 5 instead of 3 that I just did there. Vincent, can you change the quantity of contracts programmatically? So yeah, great question, Vincent. Actually, what you do is you just go in here, and you can actually, there's a couple things you can do. You can, first of all, with the ATM. Okay, so if you're using ATM, an ATM strategy, then the number of contracts that you've specified in the ATM is what you'll be trading. Okay, so I did 4 in this case. I did 3 narrow, 1 sort of wide. If you are using just the what we call the default trade management, which is using a profit target and ticks specified within ticks or some percentage of the price, or ATRs, which is basically the average bar size. This is great, by the way. This is great for if you got one of those charts that that has varying bar sizes. You might want to put your stop. Say you decide I want my stop to be 8 average bars out from the entry price, right? So when the bars are really tall and really wide, you're not going to get killed on it, right? And similarly, when the bars are really narrow and they're really really short, you don't need to risk so much, so you can actually shorten your stops because the market's volatility is say less than it normally is, and that's why the ATR is actually really neat for that, because you can look at again putting your stops kind of relative to how volatile the bars are. But basically, what I was getting at is down here now. You can actually decide what your quantity is going to be. So probably the one that makes the most sense is changing the default quantity, and you can set that just like 10 or something like that, and you trade 10 contracts, and there you go. So that's basically how you do that. Okay. The results of the Bloodhound can be used in Market Analyzer, and yes, it sure can. And actually, that brings me to the next section where I was going to show you. So let me just disconnect. Oh, actually, so we have Market Analyzer as well. Or sorry, not we, but I mean, we can certainly add Bloodhound to Market Analyzer. So if you're looking at say a basket of stocks or maybe a couple different futures or maybe forex pairs or whatever, you got a single system that works for all or a handful of things. You can most certainly design your system and then pop it into a Market Analyzer, and then you can use it to signal off kind of when you've got your trade signals. So I've got one I have this sort of pre-done here, but basically it's a very simple system, that just looks at the change in slope on the stochastic. Okay, when I say change in slope, I just mean is it accelerating or decelerating? And you just set some alert conditions, based off the what we call the confidence value, or basically Bloodhound's output. And you can see on the chart here that anytime we get this sort of long signal here, I get this nice green little part here, and Bloodhound looks at both, examines both the long and short side, if you will, on every bar. So you can see I've got some of these negative signals here, and you can figure, some of you guys that use the market analyzer extensively will know that you can actually use it to send audible alerts and do things like that. So you could, in theory, I suppose, have your attention somewhere else, and then have this sort of ping you when it sees something interesting, so that you can go pull up the chart and see if it's worth trading. So one way to use Bloodhound would be essentially to use it as kind of like a filter. You have lots of different stocks or whatever that you're looking at, and you want to just see if a certain setup is occurring in the market, and then you can make a decision from there. So that's one way to use it. And another thing I should bring up here is the backtesting capability. So that system that we had earlier, okay, so the stochastic stock signal that I actually had built earlier before, NinjaTrader allows you to do backtesting, and so we basically just sort of piggyback off of NinjaTrader's backtesting analysis ability, which is quite powerful. So we're not reinventing the wheel, but we're basically, you can take your strategy that you built, plug it in and backtest it. And to do that in NinjaTrader, you go to the File, New, Strategy Analyzer. It'll pop up one of these windows like so. And then again, you select Raven, and we basically save and then design your system, and then you load it up. Right. So I've got one built already. I've got it. I've even got a little explanation here that I've written here, and as you can see, the logic looks familiar. That's pretty much what we put together. Okay. That's the SMA cross, the MACD, the stochastic. All right. And I specify the logic template for entries, and you can do the same thing for exit logic. So maybe you've got a certain condition you see that you see that when you want to exit your position, you can build in some complex logic, and it will exit based off those signals. And again, this is a daily system, so I put on the daily chart. And then and as I was mentioning earlier, this is a neat feature, but you can use the ATR to define stops that are relative to the bar size. So I've said here, well, I want to put my profit target and my stop loss 8 average bars from the entry price. Okay, so when the bars are, when you got a lot of action in the market, the bars are really tall, you're not going to get killed on a stop out, because you've basically set your stop kind of relative, your risk relative to the volatility of the market. And so I've said, just playing around with this a little bit, I found that eight bars tends to be a fairly good number for going over a certain good 3-year period here. So as you can see, I've set the backtest date from 2010 to essentially today, or yesterday rather. And I can hit this, tell NinjaTrader I want to test this over this little basket of instruments, and just hit run backtest. Sort of let it chew away there, and the results, of course, should be identical to what we just had before. But basically, you can see that had you trade this system, the one that we just built earlier. Over the last 3 years, using this handful of stocks or instruments, or I keep saying stocks. So there's a couple stocks here. Some of these are very, like Google and Apple. If you're familiar with them, like Google especially is a very as a stock that has these great, huge, sweeping movements. Moves a lot, essentially, a lot of volatility, which is great for traders. crude oil, same idea. It's got a lot of volatility in it. It doesn't work for everything. You can see. So there's one that didn't work out too well, but on the whole, this one actually did pretty good. Okay, so I can go through and I can actually look at the performance, the overall performance of everything. I can go in and actually, if I select, say, the CL here, right, like that, I can go and I can take a look at the charts that it had when it was when it took its trades, and you can see where it took it, where it exited, right? I can go in the graph and I can actually look at the equity curve for this particular instrument. I can look at the executions, the actual trades. So there's a lot of information that you can glean from here, right? And even here, there's actually a bunch of different graphs. Sort of exit and entry efficiency. This is great for analyzing how good your stops are. Maximum adverse excursion, like this. That's kind of like, these green ones represent profitable trades, and this tells you, how much did it go against me before it profited, or before it before it did well, or before it exited with a fail. Okay, so the adverse excursion here, you can see, is along this x-axis here. So the further out that these guys are to the right, generally speaking, the riskier the trade was before it closed. Okay, so there's some room for improvement. You got this one outlier here, which actually had a fairly large adverse excursion. So that's because we had a fairly wide stop loss. But you can look at these metrics and whatnot. And this is kind of very important for getting the characteristics of your system, because you have to be comfortable with these drawdowns. You have to be comfortable with the characteristics of your system before you trade it. All right, so you can see there was one fairly big drawdown here. And that may or may not be something that you can actually sit through and stomach, right? That's very important to know these characteristics before you actually trade. Okay, let me go back and let's see here. Marino, can I use Bloodhound generated signals to replace entry logic signals built into Microtrend's double shot strategy, automated strategy? Marino, we do have a small contingent of customers that were using Microtrends as their manager, so I do know it's possible. Tom from Microtrends did the integration work, but basically, in theory, it is. It's something that you'd have to talk to Tom, who does do integration stuff. And I'll be honest. I guess I'll just leave it at that. And if you want to explore that, but absolutely, because basically Bloodhound is it's an indicator just like any other one, and it will spit out a value that can be read in by a strategy. So here, for example, so these are just plots, folks, and you can feed those into a strategy, and then have some maybe custom code to manage the trade. So let me illustrate. But basically, what I'm getting at is, if you're a programmer as well, you can go in. If you go to our main website and our documentation, we actually have some documentation on how you'd custom code signals coming out from Bloodhound. Now, why would you want to do this? Well, maybe there's a few things that Bloodhound, like there's a few things that you need to do with the signals to augment it with your own custom logic, or maybe you've got your own way of to manage the trades. So here we actually have instructions on if you're savvy enough to go this route, you can actually go and custom code your own strategy based off of Bloodhound's signals, and still take advantage of the fact that you can still build really quickly Bloodhound systems. So that sort of brings me to this next point here, guys. And let me just add this open up twice. Sorry about that. Let me just kind of whip through this last part here, and I'll finish up with the questions. But what we saw today here is that what we have to offer essentially. Bloodhound is it's a way to model your trade algorithm. It works with all indicators and all chart types that you can plug into NinjaTrader. You can auto trade your entries and your exits, and you can manage them with the ATM as we saw. And finally, but most importantly, you can backtest with it once you've got it modeled. So this next slide here, this is kind of what I was getting at. Is I like to sort of show this and sort of give you an idea of say what a hedge fund manager or hedge funds would go about if they were to implement an automated trading system, right? So if they've got their programmer, they've hired their programmer, they give the programmer a set of rules and say implement this. We're going to try to build a successful trade system out of this. Imagine that they sort of took 2,000 man hours to finally get from scratch to a system that that actually could make money, right? You can imagine that certainly the first set of rules they give that programmer is not going to be, it's not going to work out to be profitable the first time through. It's probably going to take quite a few iterations, and those take time when you're writing lines of code. And a cheap programmer, I'm seeing programmers that charge a hell of a lot more than $20 an hour. But if you sort of imagine that it took that programmer at $20 an hour, 2,000 man hours, but it's about basically a year's worth of work, say, to come up with a system. It costs that hedge fund $40,000. And certainly our product is not targeted towards hedge funds. Although there are certainly hedge funds that use our product and they're quite happy with it because of the value proposition that we do offer. And a lot of them have actually told us that, hey, you guys, we don't charge $40,000. Put it that way. We actually, our software comes in at the high end at $495 and as low as $295 for the standard edition. And believe me, a lot of hedge funds have told us and said, hey, look, you guys are charging way too low for this. But that's not the business model we're going after. We're going for the retail trader, right? So our mission is basically to arm the retail trader with the technology that a sophisticated hedge fund, with some deep pockets and be able to hire programmers, the same sort of capability. Okay, so the difference between these three essentially are feature sets. In standard version, I'll just illustrate really quickly because this question always seems to come up. But essentially the standard version allows you to use this particular screen here, which allows you to list criteria one by one, and when they sort of all match up, then you're good to go. It doesn't, however, allow you to use multiple time frames. Okay, so one thing that we allow you to do with the Professional and Ultimate Edition is that you can hit this chart button, and so if you're one of those traders that like to use multiple charts, right? So maybe I use this is a bad example because it's a daily chart, but say you use a tick chart on one side, 150 tick, and then maybe you got a higher time frame 1 hour chart or 60-minute chart. You can actually go in and you can combine the criteria from both different charts like this, and then once you've got those separate charts in there, Bloodhound, you can build a system that incorporates data from actually any number chart. So there's no limit to how many charts you can add. The limit is what your computer can handle, I suppose. All right. So that's the standard version. Standard version is this screen minus the chart. The Professional Edition allows you to create these logic nodes using the simple and or constructs. Okay, and then the Ultimate Edition, which is probably by a long shot our most popular edition, has these function nodes, which basically allow you to build full-blown state machines. When you're sort of right now, a lot of this stuff may not. I know, for those that are new and looking at our product for the first time, you may realize this is can be a little overwhelming at first. We do realize that, but some of this stuff may not even make sense. But once you've sort of got the hang of it, and we found that in general when people do, they're building systems very quickly, and they also realize that some of them did buy the Professional version. There's just certain things that you cannot do in the Professional version that only the Ultimate version can let you do. Just having these sort of and or nodes only allows you to sort of look at one slice in time, if you will, whereas the function nodes allow you to do things like go back and examine patterns of signals, create basically a state machine with different states, and really, we just sort of put these building blocks there, and honestly, people have come up with just incredible creative systems that we wouldn't have never dreamed of, and uses for these little building blocks as well. So I guess the message you should take home is the Ultimate Edition really is everything in the kitchen sink that we have to offer. All right. Okay, so let me just put that back up, and I will continue with the questions. All right. All right. Let me scroll back up here, folks, and sorry if I miss anything here. All right. Can I use? Okay, so Kenneth, if I purchase our updates, you talk about free or cost per updated feature. So great question, Kenneth. The way our pricing model works, let me just sort of rewind. Like originally, what we had was a pricing model where, where a lot of software companies how there you buy version 1, you only have version 1, and then basically when we go to version 2, we charge an upgrade if you want to upgrade to version 2, so on and so forth. What we found there was our hands were a little bit tied because we want to implement some features. We want to implement features that are relevant now, and people, we don't want to say we never wanted to. We're very uncomfortable with going, you know what, let's not do this feature right now because we need to put this in version 2 to justify the upgrade, right? We don't want to do that. We want to just put in features kind of without having to think, about like, hey, should we just save off on this and put it in version 2? Let's just, we will want to put the features in when we feel they're relevant. So our versioning numbers, we just keep them in, right now we're at 1.160, but we've had probably about 10 updates or maybe 11 updates. I don't know exactly how many, to be honest, since we launched exactly a little over a year ago. So we're constantly evolving the product, and we tend to take a more incremental approach. So the way it works is when you purchase Bloodhound, you get a 1 year of free access to software updates. Okay, and then after that year, your software will still work. All right, so just that if you want to get the latest and greatest features beyond the year, we ask that you don't have to repurchase the software, but we just ask for a modest 25% of the 25% of the sticker price as a renewal fee or a maintenance fee, if you will. Okay, so again, it's perfect. It's totally optional. The software will work without it. Just that as we build and add new features, we hope to sort of stay motivated to keep you interested enough that you'll want to buy the maintenance to get the latest features. All right. So it's a very we think that's sort of the best of both worlds. All right. So D asks, if you use an ATM strategy and the trade goes against you and you hit the close button in error, apparently you would drop 15 ticks. Ninja has coded this in the ATM. Can you verify it? Would appreciate feedback. Email. Okay, so David, I'm not aware of that issue. NinjaTrader ATM is used by quite a lot of professionals, I guess, on a daily basis. Certainly I've never seen that, myself, that there's a tick discrepancy or whatever when you hit the close. Coincidentally, we don't actually use the same. We actually fire off a close using a different method, if you will, than this, right? So this is a bit of an aside, but if you close a position using this button here, this is different than the close button on our Raven, because this is actually a flatten all, and what this close button will do is actually kill all strategies that are running, which does a lot more than just our, probably not, like when I say a lot more in terms of it does more than you probably want it to. In the close button that we have on our Raven, basically just just closes out the position it puts on, but keeps the strategy running. So perhaps maybe it's related to that when you're thinking what you're seeing there. D is just that it's this close button here actually does a little bit more than just close out one position. It actually flattens your positions and kills all your strategies that are running, which is not really what you want when you're running a strategy. Okay. D also asks, is it possible to ID specific candles that get painted, i.e. doji, etc.? Yeah, so great question. So yeah, actually, the way to go about that is there's actually an indicator packaged with NinjaTrader that detects that sort of stuff. And really all you gotta do is, and actually let me just so I'm not mucking up this one here, right? Let me just save this as a test here, and I'm just gonna do this real quick. But basically, we have something called an indicator threshold, and what we're looking for is NinjaTrader's candlestick pattern indicator, and if the pattern's found, it just gives you a 1, right? And basically, there's each patterns can have a bullish or bearish bias to it, so you got to just be aware of that. But basically, you can go in, you can look at dojis, right? Okay, so like that, right? And essentially, if we're greater than 0, let's give us a 1. All right, this will give us a signal on both sides. Okay, so basically, you can see it kind of marked out the dojis there, right? So you can do that, and you can look, and that you can make some settings and whatnot. There's going to be some settings with that you can tweak, I'm sure, but that's the gist of how you'd use it. All right. Okay. RT. Will shark indicators work with Thinkorswim? No, it does not. Thinkorswim is a totally different platform. So unfortunately, it works with NinjaTrader currently, and that's it. Okay. Tony. Tony says, I learned something today, and is there a past video on the Bloodhound using Market Analyzer? Tony, I unfortunately don't, not on the top of my head, like Zach runs those workshops, and that's, by the way, guys, let me just mention that all Bloodhound customers get free access to our weekly workshop, which Zach, my partner, runs. And with that workshop, they go through a lot of concepts, and it's basically an open forum. You go in and you say, hey, I got this question, how do you build this, and Zach goes off and builds it and shows everybody how to do it. So it's a great free resource that we give our customers, and it's fantastic if you're learning our system and you want to try to do certain things with it. But I'm sure he has covered the Market Analyzer in one of those past workshops. I don't attend them though. Okay. Alfred, can we set up to close any market if exceeds the max drawdown and restart the next day? That's an excellent question. So Alfred, actually currently the data such as drawdowns and sort of strategy related data doesn't yet get incorporated with Bloodhound signals, but that's something that we are looking at. Tony, can you show how you plug in the Bloodhound into the column of the Market Analyzer? Okay, well, I'll do that very quick. I just don't want to lose anybody that sort of in details. But essentially, what you got to do, Tony, and I'll defer to Zach to show that in more detail to the in the Friday workshop, which actually coincidentally starts tomorrow. So I mean, you can go and certainly ask him. But basically, all you got to do is, you see this indicator here. Tony's actually a customer of ours, so you just go in and you hit new, right, and you go in and you select your indicator as Bloodhound, and basically what you're interested in is, you see this plot section here, right? Like I said, there's two plots. There's the long and the short side, and then you create two columns, one for the long side, one for the short side. And for the long side, you also got to load your template, right? So this is your strategy. You load it up here like so, right? And then you just set a sell condition and basically test for a 1 is considered a signal in Bloodhound. A 0 is considered a non-signal, and anything in between actually can depending on your strategy, how you design it, can mean some certain things. Generally speaking, ones are signals and zeros are not. Okay. On the short side, by the way, Tony, got to reverse that. It's actually -1 for the short side. Okay, just so you know. Okay, Vincent. Is there a way to track winner and loser counts and do logic based on the number of losers in a row? So Vincent, that's a great question. That's actually very similar to questions that Alfred has. Currently not yet. That's something like actually that's what we call like strategy data or trade management based off strategy, position sizing, and money management. Something that Raven, at least the current iteration of it, does not do yet. But that is something that we're looking into. Okay. Could Bloodhound find divergences? Not yet, TJ. That's something that we do get asked quite a lot, and I'll just leave it at that. We are working on something as well for that, but currently what people are doing is they're taking third-party divergence indicators. There's one that RJ writes. I think there's probably one that's you can download off Big Mike's Trading. And certainly I know that TJ, you're a next gen customer. There's a divergence indicator in one of the I don't remember which one it is, but I know there is. Revolution, I think, has one. And in fact, John actually is using some data from that for his rules in his system. So you can certainly use those ones. Okay. All right. All right. Does a bar type have to have an open high-low close in order to be accurately backtestable? Great question. So all bar types actually do have an open high-low close. The tricky thing is, however, some bar types, especially these Renko bar types, actually modify the open, which will throw off your backtest results. Okay, so just be aware of that, because the way NinjaTrader calculates the entry price is based off of the open price of the next bar. So those bar types that kind of do that sort of thing usually do it for aesthetic reasons to make the bars look a little prettier. But the downside of those is that it throws off your strategy results. Unfortunately, there's not much you can do about that, because the person who designed those bar types, it designed it that way and made, maybe knowing or not knowing that, made the sort of a sacrifice that with the design of that. All right, so Rick, free updates for life. So I think I did touch on that. So basically, the updates are good for a year, and then after a year, if should you choose to want upgrades, you can sign up for basically another year of updates for a quarter of the price, the sticker price. So 25% basically. All right, so we think that's a pretty modest thing for you to ask to sort of keep us honest and keep us going with new features and whatnot. Sorry if I'm pronouncing the name incorrectly. Kelso or Celso. Sorry about that. Can you use it on simulation backtesting? Absolutely, yes. In fact, that's exactly what I was just doing. I was just using it. I was just using it on the simulator. You can use it in market replay as well, and you can use it on the strategy analyzer, which of course is backtesting data, and you can forward test it using the simulator. And so the way that you're also asking about the trial period, and absolutely there's a trial period. It's 30 days, but what we do actually is we let you use it. So for 30 days, it pretty much you can use it unrestricted. Essentially, except for the ability to use it in what we call live mode. Like if you notice, NinjaTrader here has actually got a global simulation mode, right? And it's also got a live mode. So if you're using the trial version, you've got to be in global simulation mode. That's just to basically you just if you're going to trade real contracts with it, we just ask that you purchase a license first from us. That's all. After 30 days, the trial actually still works in terms of it. The idea is, some people came to us and say, hey, 30 days wasn't enough to learn your product. So to get around that, basically, it will still work in terms of you're able to build systems and try things out. But in terms of actually plotting on the chart, after 30 days, what Bloodhound will do is it won't plot the last 5 bars down here. and that's just to incentivize you, essentially, that if if you're going to use our software essentially to do what it's designed to do, which is build trade systems, and then actually trade off of them. We just ask that you purchase a license before you do that. Okay, Alfred. With crossover integration, does it eliminate the need for Windows 8 Pro and Parallels 8 for Mac Pro? If so, I'm switching to crossover ASAP. We certainly have customers that use Macintosh and use Parallels and use I think some. I saw one of our customers in there earlier, and I know he uses. I can't remember if it's Parallels but I know he does use a Mac. There's no issues with that. In fact, we even had a developer at one point that did use help develop part of the system on Macintosh. So there's no issues there. You can absolutely use if you prefer to use Macintosh, you can use Macintosh to run both NinjaTrader and. There it is, Richard. Thank you. Richard uses VM Fusion. So you can certainly use the Macs to run NinjaTrader and therefore Bloodhound as well. Kenneth, what about use on different computers at different times, not simultaneously? Will one copy be sufficient, or do you require multiple packages? So, Kenneth, excellent question. We actually allow you to use with one purchase. We'll actually allow you to use Bloodhound on 2 computers simultaneously, and then you can migrate them to any computers at any time. So we think that's pretty flexible. So basically, if you've got a laptop and then a backup computer, whatever, and then you've got your main computer, you can actually run it simultaneously on both. And say if you upgrade your computer later, you just go in and you can do it You can either just tell us, hey, we need to switch it, or you can go in and manage your license. I just went to the help and manage license. You deactivate this workstation, and then you can go and reactivate it somewhere else. Okay. Kenneth, once generated, does the indicator strategy ATM exist ad infinitum, or only until the next generation of another? Once generated, does the indicator strategy in ATM exist ad infinitum, or until the next generation of another? I'm not quite sure what you're asking, Kenneth. If you're asking if you can, once you save your file, you can load it up indefinitely. I guess that you're asking to you can pass it to your friends if you want. Is that what you're asking? Basically your trade system is just a file, template file. In fact, we call it, and you can pass it to whoever you want. Yeah. So yeah. Absolutely. Okay, I think I understand what you're getting at. You're wondering if you shut the computer down and you got to do all that work again to redesign it. No. You once you save your file, you load it up again, and people have multiple copies and backups and whatever previous work they've got, or you can pass it to your friends or whatever you want to do. Okay, TJ, when is the workshop? It's tomorrow at 12:30 p.m. That's for customers only. And TJ, I believe I do remember you. I'm pretty sure you're actually on there. If you're, especially if you're a customer, you should be ready to be registered. And certainly, if you don't see something in your email around tomorrow, telling you how to join up, just let me know, and I'll make sure you're all taken care of. Okay. Ken P, has Zach finished the video info on the SI Renko bars, Jeremy? He has not yet. Ken, I am bugging him about that, and what Ken's referring to is we actually have some bar types that we're trying to launch. We're just actually it is the development side is done. We're just sort of waiting on the sales material, if you will, and the instructions on how to use it. Zach will certainly be demoing that tomorrow in the workshop, I'm sure. So, are the workshops recorded? Yes, they are. William asks, what is Next Gen, a separate platform that BH works on? So William, Next Gen is one of our partners. They're a fantastic partner, and basically they've recently decided to use Bloodhound as their I guess you could say their base software. Now they've got their own proprietary indicators, but John, who's the owner and CEO or architect, I'm not really sure what his title is exactly, but he's the man, if you will. He really likes Bloodhound and the ability to create templates very quickly, or not templates, but trade systems very quickly, and tweak them. And those of you guys that do know John, he really likes to tweak and enhance his systems, quite often. And like I said, that's not uncommon. We've seen a lot of professionals do the same thing. And our tool is very well designed for that. So he's actually got, I haven't even seen it because it's proprietary, but he's got a very, very complex logic with something like 106 solvers, 106 criteria, with very, like I said, it's very complex. Various logic constructs and whatnot built into it, and he's now actually requiring, or he will be very shortly requiring, his customers going forward to actually have a copy of Bloodhound as well, to take advantage of that. Right, so we're starting to see that other partners as well are gravitating to the same thing. It's if you say, just pretend you're a trade coach, all right? You have the option of either hiring a developer and waiting out the development cycle to create a trade system the way you see fit. And of course, when things change, you got to rehire that developer, or the developer's got to stay on your payroll while you make changes. And something can be lost in the translation as you're doing it. It's a very expensive proposition. Or you could just simply use something like Bloodhound to create your trade system much faster, as John can attest to. At the end of the day, you have a lot more control, and you're just a lot more efficient with creating trade systems for your clients. And so you were seeing quite a lot of interest from trading coaches and people that are in trading rooms that want to basically you want to take a more, I guess, a quicker route to build their trade systems. Okay. What version is needed for backtesting? All editions of Bloodhound support backtesting. Can one start with standard and upgrade to others later? Absolutely, you sure can. The upgrade fee is just a little bit more than $100. I think it's $115. Let me just double check here. But certainly, if you want to upgrade anytime, you certainly can. And here's a comparison chart of the different features. And just sort of down there in the fine print, you can see the upgrade prices there. So we do give you a little bit of a break, or incentive to if you want to take the plunge and go for the Ultimate Edition right away. You do save a little bit of bucks up front. Tony, this is an existing user question. How do I make sure I am running the same logic template between Raven and Bloodhound? I'm constantly battling my logic or not showing because they might be messed up in the revision or variation of the files. Yeah, Tony, that's a little bit of a side thing, but something that I've been thinking about, this idea of sort of having once you load up one file or one logic template somewhere, that it sort of duplicates any other instance that you may have it. Currently, the way it works is more like a Word document. You have to think of like say you open up actually, Word is maybe a little more bad example because it's a little more restrictive. But if you sort of imagine maybe a notepad, and let's say a notepad, you had a text file, and you open up your text file in Notepad, and you make some changes, and you had Notepad open up in the same file, but in a different window. The changes you make in that one file will not be reflected in the other Notepad. So it's it just basically opens up the file. That may be a design choice change that we may make in the future, realizing that sort of thing. But at least at the moment, you have to sort of think of each file sort of individual. So if you have an individual instance of Raven or individual instance of Bloodhound, it's going to load it up as sort of on an individual basis, if you will. All right. So Daniel asks, "What is Falcon? When is it available?" So I'm just not going to comment on that at the moment. So it's a couple of years ago, or not years ago, a couple months ago, we were saying that we were working on another basically a trade management component to this called Falcon. And I think at the moment, what I'm going to do is just say that we've got certain ideas and certain projects on the go. Falcon was one of them. It's still basically on the table, and we're still working on it. But there's when we get pulled in certain directions and there's say more important things that have to be done more immediately, we will address those first. Our goal is actually to take Bloodhound and really refine it first before we I think we move on and create another product with its support burdens and whatnot that we have to make sure that we're able to handle that, as well as future development on that. So we do have some our priorities do shift. We tend to try to stay nimble. So I sort of, at first when we were first starting out, we were a little bit green at this in terms of managing expectations from people and saying, hey, I'd like to have this feature and this product done, and we'd be like, yeah, we can do it. And then next week something else comes up, and so on and so forth, and we started saying yes to everything. And so I think we really shot ourselves in the foot a little bit there. Now we're just saying, hey, look, there's certain things that we are considering, but ultimately, we have to make decisions on where do we spend our time, and at least in the moment right now, the time is being spent on really refining Bloodhound and making it the best product we think we can make it, and keeping going forward with that, and before we invest significant resources into another project. So that's kind of our priority right now, because we're starting to grow like a customer user base here now, and there's certain expectations of certain features and bug fixes and that sort of thing to make sure everything works well. So we want to stay committed to that first and foremost. Joseph, do you have a special discount for today's webinar? I think Rick asked the same thing. I do not this time. We do occasionally run them. We look at our the way we have our prices. I think we're very aggressively priced already. We do stand by our price. That's not to say we haven't run promotions in the past. Sometimes we do on special occasions and whatnot. Tied to maybe promotional or partnership announcements or something like that. But by and large, like I said, like our price I think is very reasonable considering the amount of value you get for it. We do stand by it, and people are very happy to pay it. We are aware that there's a very commonly used marketing tactic where people are just like, yeah, this is the sticker price, and really no one buys it at the sticker price. There's always some sort of discount. We sort of did away with that, and that sort of I guess pressure, if you will, to purchase. Like I said, sometimes we do offer discounts, but it's just under certain occasions. But by and large, we want people to buy not just because there's some sale going on. We want people to buy because they actually find the product useful and they can recognize the value. So we do stand by our price, and like I said, we believe it's fairly aggressively priced already. So hope I've answered that question. Okay. Kenneth asks, does it handle tick time and range bars? So absolutely, Kenneth. It'll handle any kind of bar type that you've got installed in your system. And that's both the bar type that maybe you put Bloodhound on top of, like this, or maybe the bar type that you may be using here to add as a separate bar type here. So there's two ways to add. You can integrate bar types here. So you can see, like, I got the Better Renko. That's a bar type that I've downloaded off the internet, and we've got our own proprietary line break and Renko bars, which we officially haven't really launched yet, but it's actually included in the download as a trial. You can actually even buy it, but we just haven't got the marketing materials done for that. But anyways, it is there. But yeah, the point is, I want to say is that, yeah, you can absolutely use any kind of bar type you want. Tony, does the feature you build for next gen available for existing Bloodhound users as well, i.e. template runtime? Oh, okay, Tony. Yeah, okay. So you're very sharp, actually, Tony. You caught that, didn't you? Okay, so it is, but you just what Tony's getting at is next gen we built this little feature in here that allows you to export as a black box. Okay, so if you're typically a trading coach or whatever, and you just don't want people peering into your system and to reverse engineer it, you can actually export it as a encrypted file, and have the logic hidden so that people can't see what you've done. And so at the moment, we just kind of handle that on a case-by-case basis. So if you're interested in doing that, something like that, do contact me and we'll talk. And I will enable that feature on your Bloodhound. But it basically, we have a special partner license, I suppose you could say. And so you can talk to us about that, kind of offline if you like. All right. Richard, no one outside the Woodlands family has copy yet. He is planning on doing the general release early next week. Thanks for the update, Richard. So yeah, absolutely, Richard, you're probably one of the very few people on this earth that actually has that update from Next Gen. But basically, what he's getting at is Next Gen hasn't officially released their Bloodhound integration yet, but likely it will be next week. You get your own ticker toys, says TJ. Can Raven be used in all versions of Bloodhound? Yes, it absolutely can. Do next gen customers still get $100 price reduction? So TX, that was actually a promotion we ran way back in April. There is a I guess I don't believe even John may be running a promotion anymore. But TX, why don't you give me a call, contact me directly about that. All right, so Toby, is this recorded? Yes, it is. I talked to Zach in Warehouse and the Falcon. Tony's saying that there's another company called Indicator Warehouse that uses the name Falcon. Yes, they do, but it's unrelated. Richard, Jeremy, Dan, and I tried to load this video, but it would not load. Okay, so Richard, yeah, just maybe you can just email me about that, and I'll look into that that video that you're referring to. Tony, just wondering, have you done any work with Apex investing? Yeah, we actually, I do recall actually talking to some of the Apex guys. Not some, there's one guy, Apex, about a year ago. And I can't remember for the life of me how that came out, if their indicators actually worked or not with Bloodhound. Yeah, Tony, maybe just submit a ticket request for us, and we'll look into it and dig that up. I don't remember. I don't remember if they were one of those vendors that said no, we don't expose our data, or if they were one of those vendors actually. I do recall that they looked at it and they were like, yeah, it sounds like a good idea, but we don't want to invest the time in doing it. So I don't remember. I'm sorry, Tony. So we'll have to. You have to email support about that, and we'll look into that. Daryl. Okay. Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't remember. Okay, so I guess that's the end of the questions there. So I'm gonna leave it here. All right. So yeah, Tony's actually saying that he was looking at the Apex. Okay, I think I sort of remember that Apex, it didn't work out. Yeah, where Apex doesn't have a decided not to like what Tony's asking is like, what I'm getting at is there's some third-party indicators that specifically do not actually share data. Okay, so if they do not share data, they can't be read in by any other indicator or strategy, and that includes Bloodhound. So Bloodhound will only work with those third-party indicators that actually sort of play nice and actually share data using plot, the indicator plot facility. But if they don't, then basically nothing can read it, Bloodhound included. All right. Okay, so that's I think pretty much the. Ken's got one more question there. Bloodhound will work on 32 or 64-bit. Yes, it will work for both. Okay, so thanks for attending today, And hope you've learned something new. If you've been around the block a couple times with us and seen what we've had to offer, if you're new and you see Bloodhound for the first time, I hope you got a pretty good idea of what we're about and how we can help you in the future. So thanks again, and we'll see you later.